Commitment 2024 special, the Granite State Debates.
This year's fierce fight for New Hampshire's corner office is considered by some to be the most competitive governor's race in the country. Republican Kelly Ayotte and Democrat Joyce Craig started highlighting their sharp contrasts even before winning their primaries. Ayotte is a Nashua native. She was appointed Attorney General under Republican and Democratic governors before being elected to the U.S. Senate, where she served from 2011 to 2017.
I'm focused very much on New Hampshire, and we think about the choice in this race. It's such an important election.
Joyce Craig was born and raised in Manchester. She started her political career on the Queen City School Board, becoming an alderman and then mayor of her hometown.
There's still a lot more work to do, which is one of the reasons why I'm running for governor.
Both candidates promising very different approaches to Granite State priorities.
Tonight, the candidates for governor.
Thank you for joining us for the Granite State Debates. I'm WMUR Political Director Adam Sexton. We're starting our debates tonight with the candidates for governor, Democrat Joyce Craig and Republican Kelly Ayotte. They'll be answering questions from me and from our panelists. Those panelists tonight are WMUR anchors Ariel Metropolis and Steve Botari. Each candidate will get up to 60 seconds to answer a question. They'll have up to 30 seconds for rebuttals if necessary. Those will be granted at my discretion. Each candidate will also get 60 seconds at the end of the hour to make a closing statement. We want to start with our first question from Ariel Metropolis.
Adam, thank you. We want to start tonight with a top issue in this race and something that has dominated TV and social media ads: the right to have an abortion and the law here in New Hampshire. Senator Ayotte, we'll begin with you tonight. You have a long record of being in favor of abortion laws that are more restrictive than New Hampshire's, supporting a bill in 2 separate Congresses to end abortions after 20 weeks and voting several times to defund Planned Parenthood. You've been saying for months now that you would not change New Hampshire's current law to make it more restrictive. But tonight, can you speak to the voters who may be skeptical? Why should they believe your evolution on this issue is sincere?
Thank you, Ariel. I want to thank WMUR for having us tonight. This is a really important issue for the women of New Hampshire and for the people of New Hampshire. And I've always thought this should be an issue decided by the states. And New Hampshire has passed a law that I fully support. And I said that the minute I got in this campaign in the primary, that gives women the freedom up to 6 months to obtain an abortion for any reason. And if, God forbid, in the last 3 months, a woman has a medical emergency or her baby suffers from a fatal fetal anomaly, she can still obtain an abortion. I support that law. I believe it's a consensus here in New Hampshire, and I will veto anything more restrictive sent to my desk if I'm governor. And I've been very clear on that throughout this campaign.
And just to be clear, even though your political position has shifted slightly, you still believe voters should?
Well, Ariel, I've always thought this should be a state issue. And in fact, this issue is now the state issue, and they've decided. I fully support our law. I will veto anything more restrictive.
Mayor Craig, to you next. You've said that you're against restrictions on abortions in our state, even in the 3rd trimester. You're in favor of Medicaid paying for abortions in New Hampshire, requiring private insurers to cover the cost of abortions, and making New Hampshire a haven for out-of-state women seeking abortions. Some people see these as extreme positions. This is a purple state. Why should New Hampshire become one of the most liberal states on this issue?
Well, thank you, Ariel, and I want to thank WMUR and everyone who is tuning in this evening. This election is about trust. You know, I first got involved in public service when I ran for school board. I wanted to change the direction of Manchester Public Schools, and today I'm running for governor for the same reason that I ran for school board and mayor, to ensure that residents across our state have the opportunity to succeed. To your question, Ariel, I believe and trust women to make their own healthcare decisions. And an abortion is healthcare. And we need to make sure that we are protecting reproductive healthcare in our state. And as governor, I am absolutely committed to doing so. But as you said, and as we know, Senator Ayotte has spent her entire career attacking reproductive freedom. She has voted for a national abortion ban. She's voted multiple times times to defund Planned Parenthood, and has said if she is elected governor, she would continue to defund Planned Parenthood. She shepherded Neil Gorsuch through the Supreme Court process, and then she celebrated when Roe v. Wade was overturned. Her actions speak louder than her words, and we cannot trust her.
Senator, you have 30 seconds to respond.
I think it's really important for your viewers to understand that independent fact checkers have found that her claim that I voted for an abortion ban misleading. And in fact, you described the law that I voted for. I've always thought that this was a state issue. I fully support our law, and I will not change it. And in fact, I will veto anything more restrictive. I will protect our abortion law and defend it with everything I have.
The fact is, though, that she did vote for a more restrictive abortion ban when she was a senator, a more restrictive ban than we have in New Hampshire. And the law that we have right now holds physicians criminally and liable for providing essential health care to women. What we have in place right now is not adequate in terms of making sure we are providing the health care necessary to women in our state. Reproductive health care, and we cannot trust Kelly Ayotte because her actions speak much louder than her words that, oh, by the way, she changed her opinion when she was running for governor now because she knows how important this is to voters in New Hampshire.
I have not changed my opinion. And as you mentioned, Ariel, independent fact checkers have found her claims misleading because the bill that I voted for was 5 months with exceptions. Our law is 6 months. And I fully support it. I will defend it. And then in the last 3 months, if God forbid you have a medical emergency or your baby has a fatal fetal anomaly, because I've had my own situations, I think it's really important that we protect the law, and I will defend it. And I want your viewers to know that no matter what is sent to my desk.
And we know this is, of course, a very important issue, which is why we have more questions on it tonight. Mayor Craig, should a viable fetus have some protections under the law?
So again, I trust women to make their own healthcare decisions. I think that is really, really important when we're talking about reproductive freedom. These decisions should be between a woman and her doctor. And that's what I will fight to ensure. Not only ensuring that we have reproductive freedom in our state, but as we talked about earlier, expanding reproductive freedom. Because again, it shouldn't matter if a woman can afford to have an abortion or not. If she needs that procedure, it is healthcare and it should be covered. And that's what I will be fighting for.
But do you believe a viable fetus should have some protections under the law, just to be clear?
I'm very clear. I trust women to make their own healthcare decisions, and these decisions should be between a woman and her doctor.
Senator Ayotte, another question for you. If a federal ban was passed limiting abortions to earlier than 24 weeks under New Hampshire's law, would you direct your Attorney General to fight that in court?
I would. If Washington passes a law to address abortion, I will fight for New Hampshire's law. This issue has been returned to the states, and I will fight with everything I have to defend New Hampshire's right to decide this issue and to protect our law. And having been an Attorney General, I know how to fight Washington, and I'll do it with everything I have.
And a final question on this tonight. Do you believe life begins at conception? This is for both of you. Senator Ayotte, we'll begin with you on this.
Well, again, I think this is, certainly people have strong personal feelings about when life begins, but we're very clear here in New Hampshire that women have the freedom to obtain an abortion up to 6 months for any reason. I'll protect that law and the exceptions after that. It's important, and that's really the most important question because people do have strong personal feelings about the issue of abortion, but our job is to bring people together as governor around difficult issues, and that is what I plan to do. It's why I will support, and I fully support this law.
Mayor Craig, the same question to you.
Thank you. You know, New Hampshire is the only state in New England that hasn't codified access to abortion. And while Kelly Ayotte is talking about the law today, her supporters, extreme Republicans in the State House, have proposed a 15-day abortion ban, a 6-week abortion ban, and a 15-week abortion ban. And so until or unless we codify access to abortion, we will have attacks on reproductive health care. And I am fully supportive and will work to make sure that we have codified access to abortion because, again, I believe abortion is health care and women need to make their own health care decisions in consultation with their doctors.
Let's just be clear. Republicans and Democrats voted down those bills because they support the current law. So Republicans, many of them voted against the bills she cited. And if those bills come to my desk, they're going to be vetoed.
Okay, we want to move on to some other issues.
What is
you know
the
what? We've
harm
covered
with
10 minutes of this.
What is the harm
We're going
with
to move on to the
codifying
next
access
issue
to
of
abortion to
immigration,
make sure
starting
it's
with a
available,
question
though?
from Steve
We are
Latari.
codifying because you have 6 months in this
All right,
state.
we
and
will be
accessible
Move on to
moving
another
class.
topic here.
Yep. We are now turning to the topic of immigration. Cities around the country have faced difficulties managing an influx of migrants. Mayor Craig, when asked if you would welcome migrants to New Hampshire as governor, you said this. I'm going to quote you back to yourself here. Quote, "I would work with the federal government to ensure that they understand what's happening in our state." So we'd like to clarify your position on this tonight. As governor, would you welcome large numbers of migrants to this state? Why or why not?
No, I wouldn't, because that would be irresponsible. We have a housing crisis in our state right now, and we don't have the supports necessary. You know, I want to confirm with what I've said in the past, New Hampshire is not a sanctuary state. It would not be a sanctuary state when I'm governor. But I do agree that local communities should have the authority to put policies in place to make sure that their communities are safe. And I think it's really important to note that we had a solution to all of this with a bipartisan border security bill that would have funded 1,500 border security agents, would have protected our borders, would have provided a way for individuals to become citizens, and it would have stopped fentanyl from coming into our communities. You know, Kelly Ayotte caved to Donald Trump and didn't support this bill, and she likes using this as a talking point instead of focusing on a solution. I am focused on solutions, making sure we are doing everything we can to support New Hampshire families and lifting them up.
Senator, 30 seconds to respond.
Well, first of all, she supports sanctuary cities. She went up to the legislature and testified against the ban in our state. Second of all, she spends all her time campaigning with Maura Healey, the governor of Massachusetts. They've spent $1 billion housing illegal immigrants in Massachusetts. So is that where she's going to get her policy guidance? Because that would not be good for New Hampshire. Finally, I was a very bipartisan senator. I actually worked across the aisle on these issues on immigration when I was in the United States Senate to secure our border and to make sure we strengthen our legal immigration system.
Mayor, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Sure, we had a solution. Kelly Ayotte didn't support it, and now she's using this as a talking point. She mentioned that I went to Concord. She's right. I went to Concord with my police chief. We advocated together to ensure that our community was safe and that we ensured that we had trust within our community, which is so important when it comes to public safety. And regarding Governor Healey, this is just a way for Kelly Ayotte to defer from her record because she can't stand behind it. Again, we had a solution in place, and she caved to Donald Trump instead of making sure that New Hampshire was safe.
Senator Ayotte, you mentioned the border. The State Attorney General's office organized a special task force to patrol the northern border here in New Hampshire.
Yes.
The state said that it produced some intelligence information. We got some numbers from the first 7 months. Data shows task force members have made a total of 16 arrests for crimes like DUI and driving with a suspended license, and that Customs and Border Protection made 7 reports total about suspicious activity. So given your concern about law enforcement vacancies in the Granite State, is this the best use of our limited resources?
Steve, I was actually in Pittsburgh yesterday, up at the border. I was not only there with the sheriff, I've spoken to the Coos County commissioners, with local law enforcement. I was actually there with a member of the Border Patrol. They caught someone yesterday coming over. And in fact, I asked him about these patrols and how helpful they were. He said they were very helpful because there's deterrence. And in fact, there were fewer people coming over in New Hampshire. But he stressed with me that he couldn't believe the dramatic increase over that sector, the Swanton sector that includes New Hampshire. And so making sure that we are supporting our law enforcement up there with those resources is critical to protecting New Hampshire. We also need to enhance their communication systems. That's happening so that they can communicate with each other and also federal law enforcement to protect each other. but literally I was there yesterday and they think it's valuable. And I really trust the people on the ground in the North Country, those that work this issue every day, and the Border Patrol that are actually on the border up there.
Candidates, we want to move to another top issue, and that is the issue of housing. Affordable housing continues to be a big issue here in New Hampshire. Apartment vacancy rates are low. Last year, half of New Hampshire renters paid more than 30% of their income for rent. The median price of a single-family home hit a record high $520,000. Mayor Craig, you've touted your record as mayor of Manchester, expanding rental housing in the Queen City, but the units are expensive, and the city is different than many small towns when it comes to zoning and attitudes toward development. How do you plan to ensure that development happens across the state and that it does, in fact, result in affordable housing?
Well, thank you for the question, Adam. And yes, in Manchester, we have addressed this housing crisis. We now have over 2,000 homes and apartments in development. And as mayor, I allocated over $30 million toward affordable housing. And so I understand the challenges that we're facing and can work with our local communities to make sure we are building the housing that meets their needs. I have a comprehensive housing plan that I've put together. You know, the state should be providing technical assistance when looking at zoning ordinance changes. We should be working with our cities and towns if they don't have infrastructure, water and sewer, and helping them pay for that so that they can actually build the housing that they need. But while I've been on the front lines of addressing this housing crisis, my opponent has been making millions of dollars sitting on the corporate board of Blackstone. They buy properties, jack up rents, and push people out of their homes. Just last week, they had an investor call and they were boasting about how that the lack of housing is actually increasing their profits. We cannot trust her while she's profiting off of this crisis to build the housing that New Hampshire needs.
Senator, 30 seconds.
This is so typical. She always attacks the private sector, but let me be clear. Blackstone actually owns less than 1% of rentals in this country, and in New Hampshire, 2 hotels, 1 student housing complex in Durham. So that doesn't have to do with our supply here in New Hampshire. The home builders have endorsed me. I'm going to bring people together around this and the private sector at the table, along with the state and local officials, so that we can build more housing in this state.
Senator Ayotte, you've said that you'll streamline the permitting process at the state level, but advocates say it comes down to zoning ordinances at the local level oftentimes. If your initial proposals don't bring down costs statewide, would you want the state to step in some way and override local control in any way to make sure that the job gets done?
Adam, well, first of all, I think we have to, there's 2 parts of this process. You have the state process and the local process. We have to overhaul the state process because to build anything in our state, you have to get approval from multiple agencies, DOT, DES, Fish and Game. And unfortunately, I've heard stories already from home builders that projects are languishing there for a year. So we're going to lean that out. We're going to make that a 60-day process. And then we'll work and we'll partner with local communities. We're not going to overrun local communities. We'll get them to the table with infrastructure dollars. If they need water or sewer support or roads to add workforce housing, the state can be a partner. We can also look at what the state owns and see are there better uses for some of our properties that could be turned to municipalities so that they can put that out for housing. We will bring everyone to the table to get this done, but it's a partnership. It's not telling local communities what to do.
Next question comes from Ariel Metropolis.
Homelessness is another topic that has dominated this race and is often tied to the issue of housing. Mayor Craig, you've responded to your critics who've gone after your handling of the homelessness crisis in Manchester by saying that this is a statewide issue and a nationwide issue, and that you never had enough support from the state. What 2 policies would you put into place immediately to help address this crisis?
Well, Ariel, this is a statewide challenge and a community-wide challenge. And in 2020, every single mayor in our state, and we were Democrats, Independents, and Republicans, said that this was the #1 challenge that they were facing. And we advocated at the state level for more assistance, and really nothing came from that. 2 things that I would look to do. One is that we brought the National Alliance to End Homelessness into the city of Manchester. Their mission is to prevent and end homelessness across our entire country. I would have them working from a statewide level to make sure that they are helping every community that is challenged with this. And secondly, we don't have enough supportive housing in our state, and our shelters are full. So people are staying in shelters for far too long because they don't have the next place to go in the continuum of care. So I would look to have more supportive housing, because evidence shows that when we can put a roof over someone's head, we can stabilize them and then better address their underlying issues.
Senator Ayotte, you've pointed to Manchester to criticize Mayor Craig on homelessness. But we've seen cities across the state struggle too, like Concord and Laconia. One of your campaign slogans has been that you will continue on the Sununu path. But do you think that Governor Sununu has done everything right on this issue? And if not, what specifically would you do differently?
Let me just say this, Ariel. Unfortunately, in Manchester, I've heard from so many small business owners and residents that were really frustrated with the lack of leadership from Joyce Craig on this issue. In fact, a daycare closed. I'll never forget, I had a jogger running up to me while I was knocking doors and tell me, please, don't let Joyce Craig do to New Hampshire what she did to Manchester, because my daycare closed because there was a massive homeless camp in front of it. So also, while she was mayor, she took $2 million in federal funds, and instead of spending it on helping the homeless and public safety, she spent it on rebranding the city. That's the type of lack of judgment. We need to bring people together. We need to use the resources that are given to make sure that we're partnering. I'll be a partner with Mayor Rouet, and also on some of the work that he's doing in the city. For example, the ordinance that was passed that she still disagrees with, that would allow the moving of homeless to get them in a more appropriate setting rather than everywhere, and obviously interfering with things like a daycare or the Palace Theater.
Mayor Craig, you can respond.
So I think you just heard that she doesn't have any recommendations on how she would change things. And she literally just said she'd move homeless people around. The issue that we have in our state is that we don't have places to put people. Our state-funded shelters are full, and we don't have enough transitional supportive housing. We need to focus on those things to make sure we're providing for individuals to get the services that they need. And you know, I'm hearing from residents and small business owners about how Kelly Ayotte is dragging down Manchester and how that's hurting our image and our businesses, and that's wrong. We need a governor who is focused on lifting up every single community in this state, not one that is pitting one against another.
Senator, 30 seconds.
We need a governor that's going to lead on these issues, and she failed to lead on these issues when she was mayor. In fact, that's why so many people were frustrated, businesses, residents, owners. And as governor, I will lead on this issue. I'll be a partner with the state resources, the mental health resources, the Doorways program that Governor Sununu put in place to deal with substance use disorders, and then also working with Mayor Rouet, other mayors in the state, partnering to build more housing, transitional housing, to improve the whole panoply of services, because you can't just say we're going to take someone off the street without getting them the help that they need so that they can see whether it's mental health services, substance use disorders.
Senator.
But you also can't let the homeless violate the law. You can't just let them interfere with a daycare. So
Senator.
That's what she did.
Let's follow up here.
I'm sorry. She is lying and misleading the public right now. I worked with our health department, our police department, our fire department, our nonprofits, and our business community to address this challenge. And I wish there was a one-size-fits-all answer to this, but there's not. We did a lot of work. We put a shelter in place that the city funded and city ran. We put an engagement center in place where someone can go in, take a shower, get a meal, and be connected to services. We need to do more from a statewide level to support our local communities, and that's what I'm focused on as governor. And I'll say that the work that we did, we saw a 60% decrease in encampments and a 20% decrease in opioid overdoses.
We want a quick follow-up here because this anti-camping ordinance has been brought up. Oftentimes these encampments do pop up on state-owned land. So as governor, would you allow the encampments to stay?
I would not allow encampments to stay on state property, no. We need to.
And Senator, how about you?
No, I would not.
Okay, next question from Steve Botari.
There have been promises for years that children and adults going through mental health crises wouldn't be held for extended periods of time in emergency rooms here in the Granite State. But it's still happening. The numbers show most weeks between a dozen, sometimes 24 people are in ERs because there aren't adequate mental health resources in this state. Can you give an assurance that this will stop, and how would you make that happen? Senator Ayotte, to you first.
This is a really important issue, Steve, because we have had, unfortunately, people sitting in emergency rooms, sometimes children. So it's important that we have more bed capacity. The state hospital has been expanding. There were some private projects that unfortunately Solution Health was going to get forward with 144 beds. We need to revive those types of partnerships because we do need more beds in this state. Because we can't have people sitting in emergency rooms. So I will do that. I'll build those partnerships as governor. In addition to that, we don't have enough mental health providers. And this is such an important issue. I would like to use our community college and the university system to offer scholarships, loan forgiveness for those who will work in the mental health field for say 4 or 5 years here in New Hampshire, serving the communities, not only in the community mental health centers, but also in more acute settings.
And Mayor Craig, how can you give an assurance that this will stop, and what will you do to make sure that happens?
Sure. This is another situation where we have a crisis in our state from a mental health perspective, and we need to address it. We do not have enough beds for our children and our adults, and we need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to have the services in place in our state. We don't have enough professionals from a mental health perspective, and we need to do everything we can to encourage them to be here. Part of that is making sure that we have affordable housing, but we have to also look at increasing our Medicaid reimbursement rates and cutting the red tape for the state reimbursing to our medical health community centers. I've partnered with Manchester Mental Health when I was mayor of Manchester, went on outreach trips with them to talk to individuals. I understand the hard work that they're doing, and I will be a partner to them in the governor's office, making sure we are doing everything we can to provide the mental health services that our residents need.
Okay, we've hit the halfway point and we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us.